you are behind the Stanford bachelor's degree holder by about $250,000. What's up, everyone? My name is Cody Engel, and recently one of you left a comment asking me whether or not it made sense to get a PhD to study computer science if you were looking to get a salary bump at one of the big tech companies. My response was simply that no, it didn't make a whole lot of sense. Then when I started looking at things, I realized that the numbers weren't adding up, not even for like master's degrees or even bachelor's degrees. And I realized I really had to make a video just to talk about what you should do if money is your only concern getting into software engineering, and which path would be right for you to optimize your long-term earnings. This video took a lot of time and energy to put together and research, and all I ask in return is if you enjoy this video, give it a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe. So where I started off with my research was just looking up what does it cost to go to college if you're doing the traditional route. I looked at NIU and Stanford just to kind of give some comparing and contrasting. NIU's a state college, Stanford's more of a private university. They're gonna have some differences. And so looking at NIU for a 4-year degree, your tuition is going to be about $9,790 per year. And then to get a degree, it's gonna be about $39,160. That is only including tuition though. So unless you don't need food and you don't need shelter, it's gonna cost a little bit more. Adding everything up, if you were to take out the maximum allowance every year, it's going to be about $27,822 per year. And then for the full 4 years, it's gonna be $111,000. If we look at Stanford, tuition there is going to be $57,693 a year. Multiply that out over the course of 4 years, and you get $230,722 to get your CS degree. Similar to NIU though, you're not just going to be able to go and pay tuition at Stanford and that's it. You're gonna have to also account for living expenses and all of that. And so Stanford's planned budget for each year is $82,162. That includes things like tuition, room and board, fees, some allowances, books and supplies, and those sorts of things. So you multiply that out by 4, and then you get $328,648 to get your 4-year computer science degree from Stanford. The question that the viewer asked was like PhD. And so let's kind of step it up a little bit. Let's talk about what it would cost you to get a master's degree from both of those colleges. Looking at NIU, you need to take 31 to 32 credit hours on top of your bachelor's degree to get a master's degree in computer science at the university. Tuition alone, that's gonna run $17,715. The total cost for that master's degree is going to be $61,145, including those living expenses and everything like that. If you went to NIU for your bachelor's and master's degree, you're going to be out of pocket $184,518, which surprisingly is cheaper than a 4-year degree from Stanford. But let's talk about how much it's going to cost to get a master's degree from Stanford. So you will need 45 units to graduate with a master's degree. The way that Stanford works is units are essentially credit hours. And instead of having classes by semester, they have quarters. The unit cost for graduate classes at Stanford is $1,400, but you can bundle them together and save some money. So if you take 18 units in a quarter, you're going to spend $20,058 for those 18 credits. That's really about the best way to do it. Based on Stanford's own estimated budget, it's going to cost you $66,297 for 3 academic quarters within the School of Engineering. And they also have a total living allowance of $40,866, which means your master's degree alone from Stanford would cost you $107,163, which is crazy, but it's crazier when you think about going there for 4 years prior to that. If you went to Stanford for your bachelor's degree and now your master's degree, you'd be out of pocket $435,811. But again, PhD, what would that cost? And after we talk about the PhD, I'm going to talk about some some more affordable options out there. A PhD, if you were to get it from NIU, you need 59 to 79 credit hours to get your PhD, and it really depends on which dissertation you choose, and so that's kind of where that fluctuation comes in. This means that tuition for your PhD would run you between $32,662 and $43,734. Assuming that at least 24 of those credit hours are from the dissertation, I'm going to assume that you're kind of doing that in tandem to your other coursework that you're doing that count towards credit hours. Looking at all of that to figure out, the living expenses that you have on top of the tuition that you have, I'm estimating that your expenses would be $36,064 for 2 years. The total cost of a PhD from NIU would run you between $68,726 up to $79,798. And so if you went to NIU for all 8 years, you would have spent $264,316, which again, pretty cheap when you compare that to Stanford, which we're going to talk about right now. So Stanford, you would need to take 90 units, which comes out to about 5 academic quarters, which is almost 2 years. The units, they're going to cost the same whether you're getting your master's or your PhD. And so just figuring that out, tuition alone for the PhD is going to run you $100,290. For 2 academic years of housing, that's going to run you $81,732. In total, for the PhD, you would have spent $182,022. And if you went to Stanford for all 8 years, you'd be out $617,833. Now, yes, it is true that if you are getting your PhD, you are likely being paid by the university to get your PhD. This is because you're doing research for the university, you are writing your dissertation, you are helping out that university become more prestigious, and so they're going to pay you for your time, but nonetheless, they're paying you in like tuition, and so this is what it would still cost you. The other thing that you might be thinking is, well, why would I even get a PhD? You could do it to study artificial intelligence, machine learning, those cutting edge, brand new technologies and things like that. So that can be really helpful if you don't have time to do that learning on your own. If you want to learn about machine learning, there's actually some courses out there on brilliant.org that you can go and check out. This is not sponsored by Brilliant, but I am affiliated with them. I'll leave a link down below. If you want to go check them out, I get a commission from it. But anyway, that's all I wanted to say about them. Let's talk about cheaper options, freer options than going to university. So the first option that you have is doing a coding bootcamp. That's going to take you about 4 months until you're interview ready. So much quicker than a 4-year degree or a 6-year degree with a master's or an 8-year degree with a PhD. And the costs are quite a bit lower as well. So I looked, attending Flatiron's 15-week program, it's going to cost you between $17,000 for their on-campus program and $15,000 for their remote program. They also let you take out $7,500 for living expenses, so you can cover whatever it costs for you to live, hopefully. In total, if you were to go to Flatiron and take out the living expenses, you'd be out $24,500, not including interest payments, which I guess just lets you know the previous numbers we were talking about for universities, that didn't include interest payments either. That's what it would cost for a coding bootcamp. After that, you're good to go to get a job. But I did mention freer options, and another option that you can do to become a software engineer is actually go the self-taught route. This is probably going to take you about 1 year until you are fully interview ready, and the cost would be essentially free. What I would plan for is to budget around $2,000, and what that would cover are things like courses. So if you're doing like Udemy courses, or if you wanted to purchase a subscription to some person that's teaching you how to do stuff, that's an option. Another free option is I'm making a series on YouTube of just how to start up a side project. I'm not saying that that's going to be the way to learn how to program. Really, when you're going the self-taught route, you want to just kind of pick and choose which things work best for you and become a programmer over time at your own pace. So once you are finished with your education, whether that's a 4-year university, 8-year PhD, a 15-week boot camp, or going the self-taught route, how long is it going to take from the time that you start your education to the time that you get a job? For the traditional route, it's going to be 4 years. You're probably going to have a job lined up several months before you even graduate. And that's going to be similar for the master's degree and the PhD. So master's degree is going to take you 6 years, PhD 8 years, but pretty much you're going to have a job right out of college unless the economy falls apart or you're graduating into really bad times, or you just slacked off. But most likely if you're getting a master's or a PhD, you're going to be fine. For the coding bootcamp, I would plan for about 1 to 1.5 years from the time you start to the time that you would have a job. The reason for this is it's going to take a little bit more time to find a company that is willing to hire you out of a bootcamp. You're not going to have as many options as a college graduate. Later on down the road, it's not going to matter. The degree isn't going to matter. But when you're straight out of your bootcamp, that's when it's going to be most difficult. So I like to plan for at least 6 to 12 months of really hardcore job searching and interviewing. For the self-taught route, I would say about 1.5 to 2 years from the time you start to the time you get a job. The reason for this is self-taught, it's going to be more unstructured. You're really legitimately on your own. So coding bootcamp, you can at least fall back to their career services, which are okay. They can be spotty, but if you're doing the self-taught route, it's really you're on your own. And if you want me to make a video about finding a job as a self-taught engineer, let me know. I can make a follow-up. Let's assume that you started your education today. What would your financial situation look like 10 years from now based on which route you went down? Going the traditional route, NIU for a 4-year degree, you're going to have 6 years of real-world experience after you've graduated and have gotten your first job. Your starting salary is probably going to be around $85,000 a year. Your annual salary after 6 years, so what it has grown to, would be $119,216. I'm figuring that based off of like a 7% raise each year. It's not going to be that. You're going to have some years where you get a 2% raise. Some years you're going to switch jobs and get a 20% raise. But I figured this sort of averages out, and I'm going to use it for all of the other salaries as well. After 6 years of working in the real world, you would have earned $608,209. This isn't including taxes. This isn't including what you'd be paying in the student loans. Just the money that you would have been making. Stanford, with their 4-year degree and 6 years of experience, your starting salary would likely be around $135,000. I based this number off of some information I got from levels.fyi when looking at software engineers in the 25th percentile, so on the lower end of the spectrum for salaries. But I did this because if you're going to Stanford, you're probably going to be doing career fairs with like Google, Facebook, big tech companies, and so your starting salary is just naturally going to be higher than from NIU, where you probably would have been talking with companies like Texas Instruments and Hormel, and just they're companies that pay well, but they're not as prestigious. So your annual salary after 6 years, so after it's increased over time, would be around $189,344. And then after 6 years of working, the amount of money that you would have made with all of those increases would have been $965,694. Then let's talk master's degrees. So from NIU, you would only have 4 years of experience at this point because you would have spent 6 years getting your master's degree. Your starting salary is probably going to be a little bit higher. From what I found, it would be around $101,000 per year. So about 18 to 19% higher than a bachelor's degree. Your annual salary after those 4 years of salary increases and such would be $123,729. So that means that you're going to be ahead of the NIU bachelor's degree holder by a couple $1,000s, but really that's probably a rounding error. We'll just consider it about a wash. After 4 years of working, you would have earned $448,435. And what's most notable is you have made less over those 10 years than someone who got a bachelor's degree. It does not change for Stanford. So with Stanford, Your starting salary would be around $160,411. I just took the same percentage premium that you would have from NIU. Your annual salary after 4 years would be $196,510. So again, higher than the Stanford bachelor's degree holder, but instead of almost making $1 million over those 10 years, you would have only made $712,214 because you've only worked for 4 years out of those 10 years. You are behind the Stanford bachelor's degree holder by about $250,000, which is a lot of money. And with the PhDs, you're going to only get 2 years of real world experience if you went for 8 years from the time you graduate high school to the time you graduate college. So your starting salary from NIU is probably going to be about $120,000, assuming that same 18% premium. And it's really just not worth it. After 10 years, your annual salary would be $128,400. You've only made about $240,000 in that 10-year span. Your earnings are really diminished at that point. For Stanford, it's a similar story. Starting salary probably is going to be about $190,605, which sounds crazy. And then after that 1 year raise, your salary would be at $203,947, and you would owe $774,106 in the worst case situation. So again, these degrees are expensive and they do not pay off. And when we look at the non-traditional routes, that's where things get even more interesting because you don't have that extra baggage of student loans. A coding bootcamp, since you're only going to be doing the education and then job hunting for about a year, you're going to have 9 years of real world experience. And so I figure if you're doing the coding bootcamp route, your starting salary is going to be about $80,000. And then your annual salary after 9 years, so after it's had that time to increase, would be $137,454, which is not bad at all. And actually, there is a self-taught programmer on YouTube. I think he has like 5 years of experience and he's making about that much. So my numbers are probably conservative here. If we look at how much money you would have made over a 9-year span, you'd be at $958,236 just from working full time. Again, this doesn't include taxes or anything like that. You can figure that out on your own. Taxes can be anywhere from like 20% to 30%, but it's usually going to be closer to like that 20% marginal rate. And then the self-taught route, which I think actually I gave a shout out to a self-taught programmer during the coding bootcamp section. This was a section I meant to give him a shout out in. Starting salary for doing self-taught is probably about $75,000. You're going to get lowballed a little bit more. Again, you don't really have that network of people that can tell you how much your time is worth. That's still not too bad. You'd have about 8 years of total experience because it's going to take you about 2 years from the time you start learning to the time you start earning. Your annual salary after 8 years would be $120,433. These numbers are probably conservative. You could be doing quite a bit better as a self-taught engineer, but after 8 years, you would be looking at about $656,928. To answer the question, it's not worth it to get a PhD. It's honestly not worth it to get a master's degree. The only time you should get a master's degree is if you got a bachelor's degree in something other than computer science and you still want to do the university route to learn computer science. That's when a master's degree makes sense. I've had some friends do that. Works out good. Honestly, if I was starting over today, I would consider doing a boot camp or just doing the full self-taught route. I know that's saying a lot because I have a 4-year degree and I mean, I know what I need to know and everything. And so how realistic would it be for me to do a boot camp and still be successful, or to just do the self-taught route and still be successful? And this is like saying like be successful without a college degree at all, which is the other thing I think is important. If you're watching this video and now you're thinking, oh, I'm just going to do self-taught, or I'm just going to do a coding bootcamp and no college, I would consider at least getting an associate's degree, doing some of the fun gen ed classes, because it does help you become a little bit more well-rounded in the world. You have broader perspectives of things, and you just learn how to think for yourself, really. But I've been doing a lot of talking in this video. Now I really want to hear what you have to say. So let me know, which would you do if you wanted to become a software engineer? Would you do the university route? Would you do self-taught? Would you do a boot camp? And if you've already done that and you're a software engineer as it is, first off, congrats. Second, in the comments, feel free to give your own advice. Let people know what you wish you knew before you became a software engineer, what would have been really helpful for you. Let's get a good conversation started. And that's it for the video.